Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year.
He said to his friend, if the British travel by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light.
1 if by land, and 2 if by sea.
And I, on the opposite side of the shore, will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm for the country folk to be up and to arm. Then he set goodnight with muffled oar.
Silently rowed to the Charleston shore, just as the moon rose over the bay, where swinging wide at her morning's lay the Somerset, British, man of war, a phantom ship with each mast and spar.
Across the moon like a prison bar, and a huge black hawk that was magnified by its own reflection in the tide. Meanwhile his friend, through alley and street, wanders and watches with eager ears.
Till silent around him he hears the muster of men at the barricaded door, and the sound of arms.
Then he climbed the tower of the old North Church, to the wooden stairs with a stealthy tread, to the belfry chamber above. He startled the pigeons from their perch on the somber rafters that round him made.
Fast as a moving shapes of shade by a trembling ladder, steep and tall, to the highest window in the wall, where he paused a moment to listen and look down at the roofs of the town.
The moonlight flowing over all, beneath the churchyard lay the dead in their night encampment. On the hill, so deep and still, he could hear like a sentinel's tread.
The watchful night wind as it went, creeping along from tent to tent, seeming to whisper all is well. Only a moment he felt the spell of the place and hour and the secret dread
of the lonely belfry and the dead, for all his thoughts are
bent.
I bent on the shadow of something far away, where the river widens to meet the bay, a line of black that bends and floats on the rising tide like a bridge of boats.
Meanwhile, impatient to mountain ride, booted and spurred with a heavy stride, on the opposite shore. Now he patted his horse's side.
Now he gazed at the landscape far and near. Then, impetuous, he stomped the earth and turned and tightened his saddle girth. But mostly he watched with eager search the belfry tower of the old North Church.
As it rose above the graves on the hill, lonely and spectral and somber and still, but lo, as he looks at the belfry's height, a glimmer and then a gleam of light, he springs to the saddle, the bridle he turns.
But lingers and gazes to fall on his sight, a second lamp in the belfry burns, a hurry of hoofs in the village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark, and beneath in the pebbles, and passing a spark.
Struck out by a steed flying fearless and fleet. That was all, and yet through the gloom and the light, the fate of a nation was riding that night. And the spark struck out by the steed in his flight, kindled the land into flame with its heat.
He left the village and mounted the steep, beneath him tranquil, broad and deep.
Is the mystic meeting the ocean tides, and under the alders are spurt its edge, now soft on the sand, now loud on the ledge, was heard the tramp of his steed as he rides.
It was told by the village clock when he crossed the bridge into Medford town. He heard the crowing of the cock and the barking of the farmer's dog, and felt the damp of the river's fog that rises after the sun goes down.
It was won by the village clock when he galloped into Lexington. He saw the gilded weathercock swim in the moonlight as he passed.
And the meeting house windows, black and bare, gazed at him with a spectral glare, as if they already stood aghast at the bloody work they would look upon.
It was 2 by the village clock when he came to the bridge of Concord town. He heard the bleating of the flocks and twitter of birds among the trees, and felt the breath of the morning breeze blowing over the meadow brown.
And one was safe and asleep in his bed, who at the bridge would be first to fall, who that day would be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball.
You know the rest in the books you have read, how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball.
From behind each fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down the lane, then crossing the fields to emerge again under the trees at the end of the road, and only pausing to fire and load.
So through the night rode Paul Revere and his cry of alarm, to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance, not for fear.
A voice in the darkness, a knock at a door.
A word that shall echo forevermore, forborn on the night wind of the past.
Through all our history to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere.